Mamdani's not a socialist at all. This is New Deal liberalism, New Deal social democratic policies. And New York is not just the center of what you're saying to be the Democratic Party. It's the center of the national and international capitalist order. So if Trump wants to be a gangster and bully and said, I'm going to take your money if you win, doesn't he realize that when people straighten their backs up and have a spine and respond to his bully activity, if New York wanted to boycott the federal government as a city, the government would go down too.
In this video, CNN Trump staffers get shut down by Dr. Cornel West in this heated live debate. Dr. Cornel West completely dismantles the Trump camp's false narrative about Zohran Mamdani being a socialist. He breaks it down, saying Mamdani's ideas are actually rooted in New Deal liberalism, policies that built the American middle class, not destroyed it. Cornel then flips the whole argument by reminding everyone that New York isn't just a democratic stronghold, it's the financial core of the entire capitalist system. And when he calls Trump a bully for threatening to cut off federal funding, Cornel makes it clear that if New York ever pushed back collectively, the federal government itself would feel it. It's sharp, fiery, and brutally honest, the kind of takedown only Cornel West can deliver. So make sure to watch till the end to see how CNN Trump staffers shut down by Dr. Cornel West in this heated live debate.
Tonight, Zohran Mamdani fires back at President Trump's threats to New York City funding. Over the weekend, Trump said Mamdani's campaign to be mayor will prove to be, quote, one of the best things to ever happen to our great Republican Party. He added that Mamdani, quote, needs the money from me as president in order to fulfill all of his fake communist promises. He won't be getting any of it, so what's the point of voting for him? Well, CNN's Aaron Burnett spoke to Mamdani about that threat tonight. Here's what he said.
So the number this year from the federal government was $7.4 billion to New York City. Are you okay if New York City loses that?
No, we will fight for every single dollar that the city currently receives from the federal government. And I look for examples across this country that showcase the best way to respond to Donald Trump's strengths is not collaboration, is his threats rather. It's responding with strength. And what we see in California is an attorney general of the state has estimated that for every dollar they spent on lawsuits against the federal government's threats to withhold funding, they won more than $30,000 in what would otherwise have been lost. And so we will take that same approach.
The paradox, of course, of Trump's post and also of his behavior in this whole situation is that he says this is so good for Republicans, and yet he seems to be willing to do almost anything to get Mamdani out of this race. It's too late now, more than likely, but why? Why is he playing both sides of this?
Abby, I think you're going to see more fireworks. I mean, Trump has a lot going for him in this particular case, just as Republicans have pointed to other Democrat politicians in the past and try to make them individuals that they identify with certain brands of the Democrat Party. And in this case, Mamdani has identified himself as a democratic socialist, or as conservatives would say, a communist. And so why wouldn't they play up some of the policy proposals and the cost of those and what it would mean in terms of the implications for the residents of New York City were he to be elected? And yes, you're going to see more.
But on what basis would Trump withhold $7.4 billion from New York?
Well, we know Congress controls the purse strings, so there's a lot that, that he would have to
He's going to really say, New Yorkers, you exercised your right to vote. We're going to take your tax dollars away from you.
Abby Phillip sets the tone perfectly, calm but cutting, as she lays out Trump's threat to strip billions in funding from New York City just because a progressive candidate, Zohran Mamdani, is running for mayor. When Mamdani's interview rolls, you can tell he's not rattled at all. He talks about fighting back in court, even pointing to California's record of turning Trump's funding threats into legal victories that ended up earning back thousands more per dollar spent. It's a smart, confident answer, the kind that undercuts Trump's tough guy routine without even raising his voice. But once it cuts back live, Rob Bluey dives right into the typical right-wing panic spin, calling Mamdani a communist and framing basic social programs as extreme. It's like he doesn't even hear himself defending the idea of punishing voters for making their own choice. Abby immediately pushes back, basically forcing him to admit there's no real legal basis for Trump to do this. And when he fumbles and says Congress controls the purse strings, that's when it really lands. Even Trump's allies can't can't justify the threat. You can almost hear Abby's disbelief when she says, "So Trump's gonna punish New Yorkers for voting?" It's the perfect setup, exposing how fragile the whole Law and Order Act becomes when it's used as a weapon against democracy itself.
Except New Yorkers spent almost 18% of GDP on federal taxes. I'm talking about New York City taxpayers, 18% of their GDP last year on paying federal taxes. The idea that the president is going to retaliate against local leaders just because he doesn't like their politics and withhold money that they're entitled to is ridiculous to me. And honestly, it sets up a really, really bad precedent. I would be disgusted if Biden did something like that. It disgusts me that Trump is threatening to do it just because he doesn't like Mamdani, doesn't like his politics, and wants to go against the will of voters in New York City.
Well, there's 2 points, if I can, that I want to make here. One is New York is the beating heart of the Democratic Party right now. One, you have a socialist, self-described socialist, that is not a pejorative, he says it himself, who's running for mayor of New York City. And you have Chuck Schumer, who is driving us towards a government shutdown because he's worried about a primary challenge from AOC. It is incredibly New York-centric, and it's the battle taking place in the Democratic Party.
Sure.
The second point is the former governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels. I was at this event back in 2009 in my home county, Lake County, Indiana, which has had a troubled past. It's where Gary is located. But people were complaining about all the corruption and the grift that was happening there and asking him for help. And he said, quote, "I believe in home rule and you're entitled to all the lousy, clumsy, graft-ridden government you're willing to pay for."
I'll tell you
There's
this,
also
though,
a
man,
big
I'm glad
question.
that you even described Democratic Party having a heart, because it seems to me they've been so spineless.
I'm feeling nice tonight. You know,
You're very, very kind.
Well, Dr.
But I would
West,
say this,
let me
though.
ask you this, because
Yes,
I mean,
yes, yes.
it's to your, perhaps to the point that you're going to make here. But the Democratic Party, it's a big question. What should they do with Mamdani? And in the New York Times, there was an argument that they should embrace the eat the rich populism, a scorching economic message delivered by political outsiders standing up to the powerful. The villains in this narrative are the elites at the top of the broken system. Do you think that that's right? The Democrats should just forget about the labels and just embrace the economic populism?
Oh, and it is a populism. It's not a socialism.
Anna comes in strong. And honestly, it's one of those moments where her argument just cuts through all the nonsense. She reminds everyone that New York City contributes about 18% of its GDP in federal taxes, meaning the city gives way more than it takes. So Trump threatening to pull $7.4 billion in funding isn't about budgets or accountability. It's straight up political payback. Anna calls it disgusting, and she's right. If any president tried to punish voters just for choosing someone they didn't like, that's authoritarian behavior, not leadership. Then Peter jumps in with his classic partisan spin, calling Mamdani a self-described socialist and trying to turn it into a Democratic Party identity crisis. He name-drops AOC and Schumer, throws in an old Indiana quote about corruption, and basically tries to imply New Yorkers deserve the chaos. It's a clumsy attempt to moralize while completely dodging the main issue. Trump is using threats, not ideas, to win political points. That's when Cornel West steps in, calm but cutting. He takes Peter's heart of the Democratic Party line and flips it, saying it's funny to hear that when the party's been so spineless for years. Abby pushes the conversation toward whether Democrats should lean into economic populism, and Cornel's answer lands perfectly. He draws the line between populism and socialism, saying this is about people power, not ideology.
Mamdani's not a socialist at all. This is New Deal liberalism, New Deal social democratic policies. And New York is not just the center of what you said to be the Democratic Party. It's the center of the national and international capitalist order. So if Trump wants to be a gangster and bully and said, "I'm going to take your money if you win," doesn't he realize that when people straighten their backs up and have a spine and respond to his bully activity, if New York wanted to boycott the federal government as a city, the government would go down too. And there's an identity in New York that cuts across class. Brooklyn, boogie down Bronx, I live in Harlem. New York would be able to come together. So all this talk about socialism, that's just abstract so-and-so. Brother Zohran is a liberal. He's a
Yeah.
social democrat. He's no revolutionary at all.
I
I'll
actually
do
agree
that.
with your take on that. And honestly, I think Mamdani represents the class-based politics that Trump pretended to be about and ran on both in 2016 and 2024.
And Brother
but
Bernie,
didn't, didn't deliver.
ran on it too.
He did.
And many of us were with him, but he was
Exactly.
unable to succeed at that level. But thank God the brothers Zohran, Kwame, Mamdani doing his thing.
I'll give you this much. I do think he's tapped into the issues that particularly young people care about. I mean, they can't afford housing in this country because the price is so high and interest rates are, at historic levels, and all of these challenges that they're encountering as they enter the world. The problem is that the policies that he's pursuing are not going to make things any better for them. And we know this because we can look at 4 years of Joe Biden and the spending spree that the federal government went on and what that meant for the cost of living and inflation in this country.
I think Joe Biden and Mamdani are very different. Joe Biden was all
But the
about
policies
public-private
are the same.
partnerships. For instance, like the infrastructure bill, which, Democrats love to talk about, love that it happened, but it really privatizes a ton of public infrastructure. There's a lot of corporate giveaways in there. Mamdani comes from a different school of thought.
So, wrapping this up, Cornel West just seals it here. He takes the entire socialist scare narrative and flips it on its head, saying Mamdani's vision isn't some radical revolution. It's New Deal social democracy, the same foundation that once lifted millions of Americans out of poverty. He calls out Trump's bullying for what it is, empty intimidation meant to scare working people into silence. And when he reminds everyone that New York is the center of the capitalist order, the heart of the global economy, it's a brutal reality check. If the city ever truly stood up, the federal government would feel it instantly. Anna builds on that perfectly, saying Mamdani represents the class-based politics Trump only pretended to care about. She draws a sharp line between Mamdani and Biden too, pointing out how Biden's policies lean toward corporate partnerships, while Mamdani's are grounded in actually helping people, not shareholders. Even Rob Bluey, for a brief second, admits Mamdani connects with young people struggling with rent and debt, though he quickly retreats back to blaming Biden for inflation. By the end, it's clear who's bringing substance and who's hiding behind slogans. Cornel and Anna dismantle the socialism smear with actual policy talk and moral clarity, while the Trump-aligned voices fall back on fear and buzzwords. It's the kind of exchange that exposes how bias operates, how the right sells fear instead of fixing the system. Speaking of biases, are you getting tired of biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and the other says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story, so you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.